Real quick, we're giving away $200 in Amazon gift cards. If you haven't already, check out this video right over here. It tells you exactly how to enter. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We talk about graphic design, tech, and so much more. I upload a video every week, at least once a week, to give you all the latest information about graphic design. So in today's video, I want to talk about why Photoshop is not graphic design. So there's a number of reasons why I'm going to tell you why Photoshop is not really graphic design. And a lot of people ask this question and think about this a lot. Is that, do I need to know Photoshop before I get started in graphic design? Do I need to know how to use Photoshop before going to art school? Will I be missing out on something if I don't know Photoshop? I mean, how beneficial really is Photoshop if I choose to be a graphic designer and if this is the career that I want to go into? So as you know, graphic design is essentially, to sum it up, is a way of communicating visually. That's all that graphic design is. It's a way of communication visually, and there's a lot of tools that we need in order to communicate in a visual sense. So a graphic designer has to have multiple tools to use in order to get the results that they're looking for. Whether if it's through Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Dreamweaver, and I can keep on going, but I'll stop there. So those are some of the tools that I use on a daily basis, and I don't just use one tool more so than the other. They kind of have to go hand in hand. Like when I use Photoshop, I always use Illustrator and InDesign. Those three are my go-to tools for my daily projects that I work on. Or Lightroom as well. If I'm working on the web, then it'll be Dreamweaver or whatnot, or WordPress and so forth. But basically, essentially, those are like the starting points where you want to start off. That's why there is this misinformation going on that, hey, if you don't know Photoshop, you're not really a graphic designer. And I'm here to tell you that that is simply not true. You see, graphic designer is a language that you have to convey to the other person visually. Whether you use Photoshop or Illustrator or InDesign, you still get the same results. And believe it or not, there's a lot of things that I can do or a designer can do in Photoshop that they could almost do in Illustrator. But there are things that you can do in InDesign that you cannot do in Photoshop. So for example, if I'm working on a book layout, I need to have a certain program which is called InDesign for books, magazine catalogs, and that is simply a tool that I cannot, or a project I cannot complete if I just knew Photoshop. So to answer the question is that you do not need to know Photoshop in order to become a graphic designer. However, you do need to know Photoshop as a tool along with the other tools in order for you to be a graphic designer. So basically, it's a tool that you should learn. You should have to understand it, get to know it. But that's just one of the programs, one of the tools, the softwares that you have to learn. So it's a combination of things that you should really know. And I think that a lot of people check out these videos of designers talking about Photoshop or how to edit things in Photoshop and how to do play with layers and all these amazing effects. And that's great. That's awesome. And knowing Photoshop is an art of itself, to be honest. Matter of fact, they also have contests about Photoshop, and if you enter, you get prizes and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool to know Photoshop, but there is like a whole different level if you really want to get to that extreme where you know Photoshop so well that you could enter like these contests and stuff and play with imagery so well. But you, generally speaking, don't really have to know Photoshop to the professional level in order to be a graphic designer. If you know the basics, if you know the fundamentals of Photoshop, if you know how to play with images, and by the way, we also have videos in this channel where we talk about Photoshop as well. But however, Photoshop is not graphic design. So I just want to break that misinformation that's out there. It's just one of the tools that you need in order to become a graphic designer. And I highly do recommend that you do learn Photoshop and get to that eventually some point in your career. Now, if you're just starting out as a graphic designer, I just want you to know that, and not to overwhelm you or scare you, but that's just one of the programs you need. You also have to know the traditional tools as well, like which is drawing, which is knowing color theory, knowing how to do layouts, how to also implement design through concept, and also the theory of design, and what brought you to that idea visually. So there's a lot of things that you also have to learn besides Photoshop. So just keep that in mind, not to overwhelm you, but there are lots of things that a designer has to know in order to be a professional designer. Now, does that mean you have to go to art school? That's a whole different topic of its own. Perhaps I might cover that into another video, but generally speaking, if you are someone who can understand the programs and doesn't have a hard time learning the tools and is very visual and knows how to communicate to an audience, to a client, then you don't really need to go to art school or learn these projects. However, it's highly recommended that you do if you want this to be your career and if you want to take it to the next level. So I would definitely recommend that. Now, I use Photoshop as one of my programs that I mentioned. However, it's not graphic design in a sense where if you just want to be graphic design, all you have to do is learn Photoshop. That's not true. So keep in mind that there will be other programs that you need to also know. And like I said, you have to take your one program at a time. And believe it or not, some of the same tools are also in other programs, so it makes it a lot easier since it is under Adobe Suite. So if you use Photoshop and you use, for example, the crop tool, you'll still see the tools on the left panel of the screen. They look very similar to what you would see in Illustrator or InDesign. However, they might not function exactly like it, but it's a pretty easy to follow interface only because it's designed in the same program. So that makes it a lot easier. And Photoshop is a great tool for someone who's a photographer, an artist, a graphic designer, illustrator, someone who's in fine arts. I feel like that's one of the tools that is so commonly used in the art world and which is definitely a must, but it's not the only program. So definitely focus on Illustrator and InDesign as well. That'll be my advice. And understand that if you don't know Photoshop, hey, you know what? It's okay because it's a program that you'll get to eventually. And if you don't know Photoshop, that's okay because it's a program that you'll get to eventually and that you'll start learning it, but don't overwhelm yourself thinking that, hey, I don't know Photoshop, so you know what? I don't know anything about graphic design. That's simply not true. And there's a lot of free videos online that Adobe offers. There's training, there's also YouTube, there's also other videos and links. If you guys want, I can also make a video about that, how to find free tutorials. So those are really cool sources on Photoshop out there. So I think since it is the most commonly practiced software in the art world, that's why it's so commonly used by almost every single artist actually. Even if you're not an artist, if you're just a business owner and you're trying to make a flyer or like a logo, most likely they'll end up using Photoshop, or it'll be recommended to use Photoshop or any kind of other free online tool out there. And all those free online tools are similar or have those features only because they got that idea from Photoshop. So it is a powerful tool. It's an amazing program. I use it on a daily basis. Highly recommend it if you don't know Photoshop. Let me know what you guys would want to see if I do make more Photoshop tutorials. Speaking of which, I have a Photoshop introduction video. If you haven't seen it, it's right over here. Check it out. It is the introduction to Photoshop under 5 minutes. You definitely want to take notes and watch it and take your time with it as you're learning the program. But that's just a very short beginner guide, and of course that's very brief. So I could do a more full in-depth tutorial and show you that. Another thing I was thinking about, maybe that you guys would be interested in seeing how I use all three programs. So let me know, comment below if you guys are interested in seeing a video where I talk about or work on a project where you see me using Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, so that way you see that, I've used all three programs just to get one result. And example of that could be, for example, a layout for a magazine or a catalog. You have your magazine. Imagine a spread in a magazine, and there's your text, right? So that text is from InDesign. And then on the right side, you'll see like a photo. So that'll be taken from Photoshop or Lightroom once you edit that. And then you'll see like a really cool logo or like some kind of a graphic. That'll be from Illustrator. So that's how most graphic designers illustrate and incorporate those. And it's pretty cool to see that. So yeah, definitely recommend Photoshop. And if you are worried about that, I wouldn't say don't really stress too much about it. It's not that hard of a program, but then again, people say like it's not hard unless you do it. But definitely give it a shot, see what you guys think. If you haven't used Photoshop, if If you haven't used Photoshop, give it a go. Let me know what your thoughts are on the program, and if there's anything I can do to help make it easier for you guys, let me know. I definitely want to give you some ideas out there that could maybe help your workload with shortcuts, or perhaps it's the way you manage your files. I don't know, but I would definitely be open to that. But I would just need to know if you get your feedback as well. So that's it for today's video, guys. Definitely check out this video if you're still interested in getting that $200 in Amazon gift cards. And thank you so much if you gotten this far. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, maybe perhaps consider subscribing. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I really appreciate all my subscribers that I have right now. Without you guys, I would not be as motivated, so you guys only help me get motivated to make more videos. So stay tuned for more videos to come. We upload weekly. So thanks again. Stay tuned. Bye. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you gotten this far, please subscribe down below, hit the like button, and click on that bell for more notifications to come. Stay tuned. Thanks.